Welcome to HumBot, your podcast where we talk about application of AI agents in business environments. You'll hear from professionals who are builders, buyers, users, and thought leaders adopting AI agents at scale in their businesses. Today, we will talk about what does it mean to be an AI native workforce addition in the future. If you're running a business or you're managing a team, it must be top of your mind on what does a future addition to my team look like. And we thought it would be the best place for someone who's prepping to be that addition to come join us and talk about his experiences. It's my delight to welcome Yeeshai to this conversation. Yeeshai is an intern with us in HumBot. He is finishing high school, but there's one thing, a secret recipe that he's got that none of us have. He's growing up with AI. So let's explore more on his journey so far and what exactly is he wanting to accomplish in the coming years to be ready to be an AI native workforce for all of us. Yeeshai, welcome to the HumBot Podcast.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeeshai, let's get on to it. I think there is a lot to get through in this conversation. But maybe just to start off with your experiences so far. So you've grown up with hearing AI as a term, something I did not. For me, AI was a term that I got to know way later after I finished university and joined the workforce. So how do you think just this exposure to AI has influenced your thought process on how you approach different problems that you encounter today, including the ones that you solve for us in HumBot?
Well, as you said, it's AI is a term that you had to learn later into your career compared to me, who I've been exposed to it throughout my life. And that directly translates into now you see, not you, but more so, I would say the veterans in the field who, again, as you say, had to learn it as a tool, learn it late in their life. They see it as more of a tool and an addition to their current methods. That being them being veterans, they already know solutions to things. They know those solutions work. And so they see no need to revamp it per se. Whereas for me, or for myself, I've seen AI as something I could use to increase my efficiency or fundamentally approach solutions. In the case that I use AI to sort of co-found my solutions instead of making the solution and then improving things with automation that AI allows. I simply see AI as a co-developer that I could consult in or have ideas critiqued or actually have it generate ideas for me and I critique them. This often results in me, say I ask it to generate lists of possible solutions. I go through the top 3 and I decide from there which ones to workshop further. This also means that I'm not used to the steep learning curves that veterans would be. This is because I could ask AI I could ask it to explain a lot of niche things or very industry-specific things to me within moments, which is very different to the traditional methods where you'd have to work in the field, probably go to a senior in the field and ask them how they've done things, ask them the knowledge that they know. I, on the other hand, have that knowledge at a very close I have that knowledge very close to me, very accessible through AI, which summarizes it perfectly for a great foundation building. And so in terms of like photography, for example, something I've recently been getting into, I could ask it to explain the terminology and the methods of taking photographs that veterans would have had to spend years trying to figure out. And I know that in the exact moment that I ask it, this allows me to focus a lot less on the learning part of the job and a lot more on the actual application of my of those skills and of that knowledge.
Interesting. Yeah. And thinking as an employer, I think what I found really cool about your response was that you're leveraging AI as kind of a central part of your solutioning if not the core, at least it's in the periphery. It's a tool set that you adopt, which is actually gives those with this mindset a great head start, because a lot of us carry different kinds of biases, and having something to disconfirm our thinking or even learn from scratch is a great way. So from a business context, could you talk about like one business problem that you've solved for maybe in the journey with us in HumBot? Just an example of what kind of problems are you tackling with AI?
Well, currently the problem I'm tackling is search engine optimization with y'all, thus being abbreviated to SEO. And that's essentially making sure that the website has the maximum visibility in the wider internet space and it yields as much output as we can get from it. This being, now we need to look at three specific things: the technical aspects of it, the content aspects of it, and just the overall internet presence of that website, being through links from other websites referencing that website. And now the technical part, which is understanding how the internet uses crawlers to rank websites in the search results. That technical part is something that would have taken a long time for me to learn, which, given my background and given my current status with school and for exams, and also the very limited time I had, it's not too viable of an option. However, what my generation has and what I've employed now is AI to educate me within that entire industry in one night. So what would have taken 2 weeks to understand, going through things like understanding page title usage or keyword usage, things like that would have taken weeks to watch videos or read articles about. I asked AI to simply create a booklet, spent about 2 hours or so, making sure it's satisfactory in terms of content, in terms of coherence, which is something that you need to do, which to get an actual result from AI. And then I used that to educate myself completely on all foundational knowledge needed, which again allowed me to simply apply the SEO points, going through the website code I was given, and then simply analyze it, and based on the knowledge I then had, give my suggestions and critiques.
I mean, that's a great example. And what stands out is it's not as if you just learned with AI. You learned with AI and actually are teaching us on what are the great ways to do SEO. And we discuss more advanced concepts like answer engine optimization. And what I really liked was how you go back to AI to find those gaps in your understanding without a lot of background in this. So I think that's kind of the big change we are all seeing, that traditionally what would take a long time to get to understand, to learn, frame mental models is now at your fingertips, at least for a initial starter for 10. And then obviously it's your skill and your intent and your kind of behavioral attributes that help you go the journey. Maybe let's just understand more around how do you shape your skills to work with AI and in the future AI agents that are more curated for reasoning and action. So things like prompt engineering come to mind. Clearly, you need to know how to interact with an AI-powered tool to get the most out of it. Are these the kind of skills that you kind of invest time to understand better? And do you think in future, this kind of a skill is a differentiation for any organization or a startup, which has workforce who know how to interact and get the best out of this AI tool set?
Yes, I 100% think it's a skill that needs working on, because AI has a large variety of information it can give to you. It's trained on greatly developed data sets, and is trained to give a very good general purpose response to pretty much most things in life. And because of that, while it does allow a lot of variation in its use cases, that also means that it could divert or give things that may be completely irrelevant, or maybe focus a lot less than it could have, because it knows so much. I mean, take like a normal high school student. They they studied so much for test and they know so much. They're just trying to tell you everything they know about a history test, for example, when you only asked who was some key figure in that event. And so that's why prompt engineering is a key skill, because you need to know that while AI does have the ability to sort of analyze the prompt's intent, it is limited to that, the prompt itself. And so if you do not give a good prompt, then your overall intent of that is going to be very lacking. And the overall focus of your generation will be very lacking. That's why you need to be very specific in your prompt in terms of what you'd want, what kind of outcomes you'd want, which is essentially what AI is. It transforms now the learning from reading and understanding to more so an outcome focused point where you are looking at what it generates, and that is what you're taking, not the actual learning or reading of the articles. And so if you do not specify exactly what that outcome should be and how that outcome should be presented, especially since you as the user, well, while you're using AI or while we're all using AI, we all have our own different ways of understanding. And so if you do not cater the output towards the specific understandings needed, then it'll still be lacking no matter how intelligent it is. So.
Nice. Now, let's just extrapolate yourself a few years down the line. You're part of an actual workforce, working for a startup or a business. And if you are to think of an AI product from scratch, how do you think this AI first thinking, something that I understood from how you operated, how does it change on how you would start thinking on any problem that you're asked to solve on? And there is this term that's gaining traction called invisible AI. Invisible AI, just to explain the term, is all about achievement of outcomes with AI. So rather than taking AI step by step, you agree with a tools on an outcome, and behind the scenes there is an agentic workflow which has got an embedded journey towards ethical decision making and actions to get to the outcome. So what are your thoughts on invisible AI as a concept?
Mm-hmm. Well, to answer your first question about the AI first approach, that would essentially be a shift from what we're focusing on in business operations. That being, current businesses see data on the whole as things that it's generated from what they do, and they just use that to analyze or understand whether what they're doing is good or not. Whereas new methods with AI first would rather take data as a learning tool to preempt what kind of outcomes they could get. That being, they would take data a lot more seriously, and they would have to rather focus a lot more on getting quality data, which is often not the case right now. And using quality data, they'd be able to train an AI to much better. They'd be able to train an AI to better understand their business context, their business operations, their business's outcomes, etc., and fully understand what kind of outcome they'd want. And by using that quality data, they'd be able to actually achieve that and achieve a significant business edge. In terms of invisible AI, that would be essentially how well the user interface is developed, I would say, in AI applications. That being is, if you were to just give a prompt, for example, then the amount of specific words you need to use should probably decrease, in the sense that AI should have a much greater intent sensing.
Yeah, context. Yeah.
Yes, it should be able to understand the context that you're giving. So for invisible AI, I would feel that we see a shift from AI being used as a tool to enhance operations, and more so a tool to fully manage and predict operations. That being, AI would be able to understand the operations context and the operations outcomes, and using that, be able to actually make decisions on its own to say, let's say you have a shipping business, for example, AI would be able to understand what kind of package is being delivered, or what kind of package is received, and then where to send that to someone in the workplace, for example, workshop, for example. And AI would not need the extra human process of telling it, take note of this, or AI needing to be alerted specifically to do a specific thing. AI itself would be able to understand that a specific action is required at a specific step in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. And I believe this word invisible AI is often connected to this agentic behavior of AI, where there is a set workflow of what a business workflow is and it gets automated with AI. So there is a clear step-by-step process. And like you said, human in the loop may or may not be essential depending on the criticality of the outcome. So, I mean, putting all these together, have you heard of this term lean startup? Because it's an upcoming term where there is a lot of hype around one-person unicorn organizations, etc., and kind of AI is being that kind of empowering factor. So as you kind of put yourself out there, do you see yourselves as part of these kind of lean startup setups where the biggest opportunities are to really grow fast and disrupt traditional ways? Is that kind of how you're thinking and preparing yourselves for in future? Or is it more a slow and steady approach for you, where you're kind of learning more or absorbing whatever AI can teach you and look at different problems without really thinking of efficiency to start with?
So for your question, yes, I have heard of lean startups. That's now where you'd have a lot less employees who now would be able to employ AI to cover that broader range of skills required. As I said before, AI allows for a shorter learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And that now allows for you to focus and diversify. That allows you to diversify your skills across a broader range in an industry, because that time to learn is significantly reduced. And so I see the lean startups to be a prominent future prospect,
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the case of it being quick and efficient. That being AI's biggest gain is efficiency. It allows for time efficiency, cost efficiency, anything. And so by using that, it allows us to, it allows that unicorn startup that you talked about, where you could have just a few skilled people who have the ability to learn and the ability to adapt. And furthermore, the ability to think critically about tasks. And instead of needing that knowledge to perform things, they only work with that ability to apply, because that knowledge they can get just off AI itself. And so that allows for the efficiency gain in terms of time and especially in terms of cost, because that decrease in need to even invest in employees, not even cut down, but the need to invest into employee education would decrease in the sense that you don't need to fund university programs as much to allow for that specialized skill development. All you need is the specialized adaptability and the critical thinking needed to apply knowledge. And with AI, it allows you to gain that knowledge in that instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I liked how you phrased it. Kind of shortens the time to learn, if that were a metric we could coin. But for me, someone who's kind of running a startup, I think the first step that we evaluate everyone is the intent to learn, even before we pair those experts up with AI tools so they can actually shorten their time to learn. So the intent to learn becomes very key. And that's something which is kind of a common theme across everyone young wanting to join the workforce, because clearly you can see how much more can you do for your own skills and time. Now, maybe just curious to understand your view, what are the challenges you think any teams in future are likely to experience when they hire young people who probably are not just comfortable with AI, they probably will demand that there are AI tools out there in the work in that business ecosystem, because probably they don't see themselves working without AI in the traditional ways. And what do you think about the more tenured workforce who probably are not that used to working with AI? How would someone like you go in and blend with a workforce that's probably not used to using the tools that you've grown up with?
Well, I think the most prominent or at least most known problem will be the over-reliance on AI. Because while AI is a great tool to improve your skills or to expand your skills, I think many people are seeing it as a tool to replace skills entirely. And its ease of access allows for that to be abused very easily. And I've seen it among peers, and I've seen it amongst especially studies with some users of GPT having a decrease in critical thinking, actually, which is very concerning. And so that, I think, if the current workforce has too much of a hype for AI, and they just see now the youth with AI as an absolute solution, then they'd be blinded to now the understanding that very tool is what's going to floor that entire workforce.
Yeah.
Because if there's that over-reliance, then outcomes will be very limited. It's going to essentially be the same across the board. Because imagine if every company employed people who only knew how to use AI to do things. That would reduce overall market competition, because at the end of the day, the most efficient or the most optimal output will be capped at that AI. And so you'd see a massive fall in overall competitiveness. But I would feel the problem with the veterans in the workforce would be that right now they could, currently in the workforce, veterans are having great pushback against the implementation of AI for certain things, because we've seen it used as the reason many people are being fired, actually. And so they'd feel that AI could make them replaceable in a sense, or AI being as cost efficient as it is would incentivize organizations to only keep a select few. However, the biggest thing though is if you have the emerging workforce join a company while the veterans are still in active roles for a project, for example, then to blend the two might have a bit of a clash, because veterans might see the youth as possible replacements for them, or possible replacements in a much more aggressive sense than traditional. Or they might see the youth as over-reliant and not trust the skills entirely. And so veterans, if you have that problem where the experienced people in the field completely reject the youth, then you'd see a massive sort of disagreement within companies altogether. Or if veterans, as I said, see AI as an absolute solution, if they rely too much now on the youth so providing their input and the veterans feeling that the youth's input with AI is better, then you see an overall decrease in companies' output and efficiency. So yes.
And, I have seen a lot of research which is substantiating a view that because of all this AI evolution, it is the young engineering talent that comes into the workforce which is at risk. So clearly, because AI can do the job of young engineers. But what I found fascinating from hearing from you is actually the young engineers will do a lot more for less for future employers. So it's not about AI clearly is giving a massive tailwind or a head start to young talent coming into the workforce. And I think that's phenomenal. And also looking at the more tenured workforce, clearly it will be the balance of skill set, deep expertise versus, like you said, the generalized scaling or learning of AI. coming into action. So I think the future mix is a careful balance of both skill sets, not one or the other. And having had this experience of working with you, it's kind of dawning on me personally, but also my team, that it's really not, AI is not going to be replacing any kind of this experience blocks. AI will accelerate the young engineers to do more for less, learn faster. For the more experienced colleagues we've had, they could potentially then maximize these young engineers with their AI abilities to get more answers for themselves while they curate their expertise on some very deep domains, which AI can just not go into today. So I think it's just this balance of the two. And it's fascinating how we read about research, which is kind of spreading a paranoia, versus what we think will be the reality in future, having our own applied experiences working with this tool stack. So let's just shift gears and talk about something which is probably more inspiring for you in the current times. So are you looking at any, number one, do you follow the press, the media a lot? And are there any young innovators or entrepreneurs who are kind of pushing the boundaries with AI and giving you some level of inspiration?
Yes, so the young entrepreneur I saw was Siddhant Pardeshi, who created a company called Blitzy AI. And this essentially makes use of Agentic AI as a key component of overall coding processes. He used multiple AI agents to bypass the LLM token limit. And this allowed him to have a very large sort of AI workforce, in a sense, to focus on his tasks. This allowed him to now focus on coding development with AI, to do the redundant and tedious parts of coding, or the overall time-consuming parts of coding, where the high skill is not really needed. And this allowed him to increase the efficiency of his products by massive amounts. However, to keep the overall quality, he allows for only 20% or so of the operations to be given human oversight by a skilled senior engineer. So by using this balance with AI, he has created a company which allows for great scalability, because it allows for now smaller organizations or startups even to have a lot of code done for them at smaller costs, but still allowing for the quality that you would get from enterprise grade projects. And so this allowed now a pretty great market evolution into the part where the actual time-consuming parts of skilled engineers is taken away, and the actual value add of paying skilled engineers is that final 20% where they're given that oversight. And so I feel that his sort of understanding on that balance needed, and that quick approach to solving costs problems while also maintaining that scalability was pretty respectable.
A great example. And if I were to put myself in the shoes of that engineers who do human in the loop for 20% that you talked about, that specific skill set category will do a lot more for less with tools like with what you mentioned. And in effect, all this is connecting to kind of the HumBot mission, which is like scaling human expertise. So it's still about the human expertise that gets scaled. Of course, AI will help you do a lot of automation around mostly the drudgery aspects of the daily workflow. But clearly, expertise as it stands can also evolve and improve because you get the time out from your daily distractions. So really very interesting example. And if you were to think of yourself in a company where this culture of having AI drive productivity and with experts teaching AI are kind of two clear, where culture is driving this kind of a mindset. So a mindset of constantly learning and improving together as a team. What do you think or what would be your expectations of a culture like this to make sure that the company is giving you a fulfilling job?
Well, how I feel that approach would be is breaking down. It's going back to the fundamental process of AI, where it's taking a prompt given from a user and putting that through a sort of general process, however that's designed, and creating an output. All of that based on that input being the prompt. Now, in a company sense, the literacy of the user is what would be the highest determining factor for how good the outcome is. Because if you were to take someone that has no technical literacy, then you have a lot of limitations in what they could ask the AI to focus on specifically. They'd also know a lot less on the quality of the outcome, because one of the greatest things of AI is its ability to repeat and have constant evaluation. However, if you don't know that an outcome is lacking in quality, then you'll never be able to make use of that ability. And so the literacy of the users is what I feel is the biggest thing companies would need to focus on. If they if they choose to redirect the current investments into student programs or things like that, which costs do add on to cost, and rather spend that in increasing AI literacy or data literacy, but anything in a relevant field there, then that allow for users in general to be able to employ AI in a much more focused and a much more targeted and efficient sense, especially if you take a prompt to outcome used ratio. And so if you were to have users that know exactly what they're asking or know exactly how to approach things, and they give that to an AI, which is simply then used to automate the process and reduce time wastage rather than explain or create a process, then you'd increase the organizational efficiency by a lot more. Furthermore, that would allow for companies to maintain the ethical approach of AI, because in current markets, AI is being used as a means to get rid of people, whether that be true or not. And I feel there's a lot of bias against AI, not because of doubting its abilities, but simply because people do not want to be replaced by it, which is the reality for most technological revolutions. However, with AI, it does allow for users to be educated in data and to actually know about its fundamentals. And it requires a lot less of a learning curve. It has a lot less of a learning curve compared to previous technological revolutions. And so if you to simply invest just a small bit into data literacy among the general population or general employee base, then you'd have not only greater outcomes, but a greater ethical use of AI on a whole.
Yeah, and what I captured from you is you expect a culture that drives literacy up within organizations, and that can be done in many ways. In other podcasts we've done, speakers have talked about how to effectively build and run a community with participation that doesn't fall from among employees. So there are kind of it's a great connection that I'm already drawing between what you would expect versus how other business leaders are thinking of setting up communities that not just drive learning but also applied execution as a team. So let's move let's level up for the last two questions, going beyond what would be kind of a company lens to more a world lens. So clearly, I'm sure you're reading a lot and getting motivated by use of technology for greater global impact. If you were to use AI for a societal problem or an environmental problem, is there one problem that you feel passionate towards? And do you see a role of your engagement with AI helping you contribute towards it?
Yes. So the problem I would solve is how disproportionate education is across the world. As someone that comes from South Africa, the current educational climate is severely lacking and it leads to many people having missed opportunities. Luckily, I moved to Rome in my recent years, and I've seen the jump in education by a lot. The quality has increased substantially here compared to what I would have gotten in South Africa. And that directly translates into now South Africa's current educated workforce being very lacking in the global competitiveness that they have. More so, or especially so in the technical fields, because since South Africa has that decrease in technology and decrease in education, that spirals into a further decrease where you have either the few educated people leaving the country for opportunities in countries where they do exist, or you just have uneducated people leading the system, spiraling into even worse problems. The greatest issue, though, is the availability of skilled educators and the availability of educational resources, especially in the rural parts of countries, where it's most often neglected, or it's just difficult to provide such skills. Or for example, in skilled labor, though, educators would be a lot less inclined to go towards such areas. And so you see a massively disproportionate educational sort of system across many different countries, not only South Africa. However, with AI, its low cost and its ability to communicate across different languages, and the fact that it's not human based in terms of needing specific living conditions, for example, or having personal goals of getting a certain salary, both of which may be lacking in terms of like rural areas, for example. AI allows for a very specific and very and objective education, not influenced by politics, and would allow for its use of great databases to give a pretty high standard of education across the board. And it also being able to specifically target individual needs due to its ability to analyze, or the fact that you could use AI for each individual student. It allows for a greater increase in educational quality than you would have even with normal traditional methods with high educators. And so with that increase in education, I'd feel a lot of problems would be solved, especially in a lot of economies where they suffer from brain drains. So yes, yeah.
Nice. And I mean, you've got such a wide perspective on how AI could help. Before I ask you the last question, do you ever fear AI is going to take you out of a job whenever you come into a job in a few years? Or do you feel confident you will adapt and learn?
Well, it's a possibility. I would be lying if I said I didn't fear that. But it'd be a lot less, though, the fact that AI is taking me off the job, and more so that the company would use that as the reason. Because while AI does allow for a lot of automation and allows for a lot of what you would think is replacement, in essence, AI should be used and is primarily or is fundamentally capable of upskilling and increasing scale of operations, not replacing. And so I feel the current climate of AI replacing people is a lot less AI actually replacing people, and the companies seeing that as a way to cut costs. And so I would think that all I would need to do is increase my ability to learn and increase my ability to adapt and employ different tools to increase my total value. So I would essentially, in the company's cost perspective, have a greater value yield than simply replace what they would deem as replacing me.
Yeah, and what I kind of captured from this is you see this idea of human expertise changing in future. Kind of the learnings and skills that you'll subject yourselves to is probably going to be very different from what all of us were subjecting ourselves to back when we were preparing to get get into the workforce. So maybe just before closing, any last thoughts or call to action for other youngsters who may be listening to this on what are the skills or one attribute that they could develop in the coming years to be ready and fit for greater achievements?
Well, having been exposed to AI for as long as I have, being exposed to the different uses of it, especially at a professional grade from HumBot, one thing I would understand is that expertise is going to be revolutionized and revamped completely, especially for my generation and the generations to come. I would say the ability to learn and more so the ability to apply is what you need. The ability to retain knowledge, while important, that's something that would come with practice naturally. Or the ability to research, while important, I would say the ability to apply is going to be significantly more useful, because you have tools which give you a lot of things. You have AI which gives you a lot of understandings and gives you a lot of directives on what you need to do to achieve success, for example. However, your ability to apply those directives, that's what will really matter in the future. Because I could know how to code. I mean, I'm learning coding right now. However, AI will code significantly better than I will right now. And with the development of it, it will continue to do so. I'm pretty sure of that. Unless I become like a really, really specialized coder and I code like 10 hours a day, which is not a practical thing to do. However, my ability to apply that coding capability, my ability to take AI and garner and gather its products and the outcomes it generates and creates a project that solves my specific needs with the generalized code that it gives, that is the ability that I'd actually want to market, not my ability to code. And so, yes, if I have to take one thing away, is your ability to apply things and your ability to critically think where gaps are or what solutions are need, and your ability to apply now that understanding of your problem to make requirements for the outcome. That's what will really be important in the future.
I must say, what a great way to kind of conclude this conversation, Yeeshai. I think it's a great kind of inspiring call to action for those, and also very succinct and actionable in my view. Yeeshai, I just wanted to thank you for joining the podcast. In the workforce, all of us carry lots of biases, lots of blind spots. But hearing from you, it just offered a very, very fresh perspective and a kind of breath of fresh air, as one would term it. So thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are kind of young and aspiring to join workforce in future, be AI native, we'll add Yeeshai's contact in the description below the video. And if you're okay, some of the listeners would love to engage with you further.
Sure, that'd be great.
Cool. Thank you, Yeeshai, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.